This is Our Side of Addiction. I'm Amanda Bork. Let's go. Welcome in. Okay, let's go. What are we talking about today? I wanted to focus on self-care. Self-care for you, the loved one, the family member of an addict. Usually, this is one of the first things to go when we love an addict or initially find out that they have an addiction. We abandon ourselves for them because it's an emergency situation. It's quite dire of a situation. Maybe you're thinking, geez, I don't have time to take a bath. Are you kidding me? I couldn't even relax if I drew a bath. They are in danger. There's a crisis with them. They need all attention on them. I can't have any extra energy diverted to myself. Or you might even think it's selfish. Everything feels like it's on fire. Who am I to take care of myself or to take a little stroll in the neighborhood at 7 p.m.? I'm not allowed to do that. It's selfish. And this could also bring up some anger. We've been in survival mode. Our nervous system is just doing all these woo alarms. Cortisol, stress hormone is through the roof. Sleep is dysregulated. Food is dysregulated. How can I possibly care for myself? How could you possibly tell me to care for myself in this time? Obviously, you don't understand how dire this situation is. I get it. I did that. I gave every ounce of my energy to my sister as soon as I found out she had an addiction. I was living overseas and she sent me an email. I dropped my whole life and I was so happy. I had finally found peace. I finally felt like I had a place in the world, like I belonged somewhere, and I left all of that to be with her. And I struggled for years trying to figure out how to help her. What does she need? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was delirious. I was constantly on edge. I had really bad anxiety. All my thoughts were reserved for her. All of my energy was for her. Every single moment of thinking was all about her, for her. I completely understand where that sentiment comes from because that's the game that I also played. What happened was it brought me to a very dark place, and not a rock bottom place, but a very low, dark place. And I had nothing left to give, not only her, but myself. There was just nothing. I was empty on empty. That's when I decided I had to step back for myself. I finally just was at my wit's end, and a couple things happened. It just made me realize what I was doing. I had altered my entire life for her. I was working a crappy job, living in a country that I didn't want to be in, driving a crappy car, and living or renting a crappy room and this with awful roommates, and crying every night because I didn't want to be here, but I had to be here for her. We sacrifice everything for our addicts, and it feels necessary and like the right thing to do. And I can't say that it's the wrong thing to do, because I think we do need to do that. There are certain elements of ourselves that we do have to sacrifice for them. whether it's short-term or long-term sacrifices, we are asked to do that just simply by loving them. And I think all of us are happy to do that. Like, there wouldn't be this argument of why you shouldn't do that, because all of us are more than happy to give whatever we need to give for them, because we want them to survive and make it through. We want them to be a success story. Even though we're willing to do this, even though we are asked to sacrifice big parts of ourselves for them, just by proxy, and that's just part of our story, what we've been dealt, there is still space within all of that for us to care for ourselves. It might not seem it, and that might be by design or by convenience, but there is an itty bitty space for some self-care. This self-care, it doesn't have to be indulgent. I'm not saying go to the spa for 3 hours. I have to say, on one of my birthdays one year, I did do a spa for 4 hours. Got a facial, a massage, a haircut. It was exhausting. I was like, I wasted a whole day in this place. Maybe that's somebody's dream, but I was like, I couldn't wait to get out of there. And that's not what I'm talking about, spending an entire day somewhere getting a massage when you can't even relax. You're not even enjoying it. Self-care is a non-negotiable. It's just like eating and drinking water. Like, we gotta do it. I wish I didn't have to. I wish I didn't have to carry this water bottle everywhere, but I need it to survive. Self-care is the same. We have to take care of ourselves. Otherwise, guess what happens? The same thing happens when I stop drinking water, or maybe I realize I didn't drink that much water all day long. I'm dehydrated. I don't feel well. My skin is not so nice. Maybe I heard if you're not hydrated well, your nails and hair are brittle. I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe it is. Well, we start feeling the physical effects of that. And the same is true with self-care. If we neglect ourselves, sure, you can sustain a short period, short-term strategy, fine. Long-term, not going to work. You are going to get to a very low bottom place, and you're going to, might be depression, might not, but you're going to get a place where you snap. I have nothing left. And we aren't the best versions of ourselves when we are neglecting ourselves. We can't possibly be good versions of ourselves in that circumstance. It's impossible. Because when I was doing that with my sister, I was either a zombie because I wasn't sleeping. I didn't know what day it was, or AM or PM. I was zonked out, couldn't have conversations, couldn't concentrate. I'm not about to laugh and smile and joke. I'm not the best version of myself. I was maybe sometimes snappy. Maybe sometimes I did have an attitude, or I was passive aggressive because I had all this stuff happening inside of me and nowhere to put it, and I wasn't caring for myself in those moments. I was not the best version of myself. I don't know if we can be the best versions of ourselves when we're going through the thick of addiction with our loved ones, but I think we can moderate that situation a little bit, and then when we're not in the trenches of it, we can become an elevated version of ourselves. And when the journey progresses past that thick stage, we can show up an elevated version. In the meantime, we have to make sure we're always caring for ourselves. Otherwise, it leads to changes, like I said, with the water. There's anxiety, depression, disrupted sleep, immune dysfunction, cardiovascular stress, emotional burnout, let alone all the relationships in your life, all of them will suffer. Maybe even your career will suffer. It costs us our body and sometimes our entire existence when we love someone so much that we try to sacrifice ourselves for them. Short-term strategy for a long-term problem doesn't get us results. And that's what this is. When we abandon our self-care, it gets stretched into the long term and we start feeling the detriment of that. Can also cause us to live in this constant state of either alertness, monitoring, bracing. Every time my phone rang or buzzed, I thought my sister was dead or calling me while she was dying. Like every single buzz all day long on my phone. So we're on the edge of our seats all day long, bracing. We're in this hyper state of arousal. And maybe we're also waiting for them to return our calls, waiting for them to resurface, waiting for them to get out of the hospital or jail or whatever it is. This really does cause a stress cycle within us, and it just keeps perpetuating round and around, it like a snake eating its own tail. One thing feeds into the other, like that hyper alertness or even that bracing, that'll feed into my anxiety levels. That's going to feed into my disrupted sleep. It's just going to keep compounding and getting worse. What I have found with the loved ones of addicts is the surrendering of self-care. It almost feels instinctual. That's the go-to. You jump to that spot without conceptualizing that you are, or maybe realizing that you are. Perhaps you feel responsible for what's going on. You feel as though their needs are more important than yours. You might even be praised for sacrificing yourself for them or encouraged to do so. With my sister, our mother pressured me a lot to resolve whatever was happening, to be the one who swooped in like a superhero, or to be the one that she could always lean on or call or whatever it is. I had to be the strong one, and I had to swoop in or figure it out or get through to my sister. So we could be either praised for being that strong person or kind of forced into that role of having to be the strong person, even though we don't want to. We also have emotions. We don't want to be doing this. We need support. We might not feel like we have a choice. So we have to just suck it up and do what needs to be done for the sake of our loved ones. There could be a fear that if we stop whatever we're doing, leaning in, overextended, rescuing, that everything will fall apart. If I stop rescuing them, they will overdose and die. Maybe that's a thought. And that's a very realistic thought. That can drive us to continuously ignore ourselves for them. Because if we stop doing what we're doing, our mind is saying they will die. Who's going to choose that? No one's going to choose that. So that's our mind plays a little bit of a trick on us by telling us those things, and we believe it because our mind is supposed to be our friend. Let me tell you, my mind does not act like my friend a lot of the time. What is that? Like, I feel like my biggest enemy is my mind. I'm sure you feel the same way sometimes, but I guess sometimes I want to fight. Like, get out here and fist fight with me. It's awful, but our mind tricks us and guilts us or persuades us to act in certain ways. Perhaps in conjunction with that, you feel guilty. Feel guilty. There's a lot of space and reasons for having guilt. But you might feel guilty that you took care of yourself while your addict is suffering. How can I possibly go to the spa and get a massage when they're on the streets somewhere, who knows, haven't heard from them in weeks? How exactly am I supposed to enjoy myself? Who am I to go and cater or treat myself when they're God knows where doing God knows what? It can feel like you're not allowed any joy at all just because someone else is suffering. I get that. I do get that. But I also understand that their suffering is not going to be eased by whether or not I get a massage. Their suffering is not going to be eased by whether or not, fill in the blank, I take a nap today. They're still going to be suffering regardless. Finding a way to please myself can reside in the same space. It's not an either or exchange in this instance. What we're actually doing in these cases is we're abandoning ourselves. We're kind of rejecting parts of ourselves. Not because you want to, but because we think that this is how we're going to survive this occurrence. This is what's required in this situation. This is how we're going to overcome and conquer. You see, if 5 people abandon themselves, we might have a little bit of a success rate. If all 5 of us band together, abandon ourselves, and give that energy, those resources, divert those to our loved one, miraculously, they'll get sober and we'll be all done with this addiction thing. Our minds will have us thinking that that is so rational and right. And while this behavior pattern, it does sometimes serve short term. Yes, it can be a good strategy short term. Addiction is long term. It's always going to be long term. And our short term strategies are not going to be able to hold up long term. We're going to try like hell, but they just won't hold up. And why aren't they going to hold up? That brings us to our next point. Burnout. Let's talk about that. Burnout and fatigue. You might not even recognize that we're experiencing this, our burnout or this fatigue. What does it look like? What can it look like? Emotional numbness or detachment, irritability, or we could have these kind of snap reactions to things. It might be tiny things that are irrelevant, but your response is just very extreme. Like it doesn't match the situation. We could also feel exhausted even after we've slept, after we've had a nap, because it's more than the physical, it's also emotional exhaustion. Can't nap that away, unfortunately. There's also this loss of joy or interest in things that perhaps you used to enjoy, used to partake in. your hobby is tennis, or we'll use pickleball because that's the rage. I think it's still happening. Your thing is pickleball every Friday night with your people, and you stopped going. You don't find joy in it. So we're abandoning these activities that we once loved. Scrapbooking, if that's your thing. Every Wednesday night you sit and scrapbook and you stop doing it. You just lost interest and you don't get joy from these things anymore. There's also increased resentment and bitterness. That one is probably not going to be top of your mind, but you're definitely experiencing resentment or some bitterness. Maybe we don't always feel safe to talk about that or admit that we're experiencing that, but I have never, ever met a loved one of an addict who does not hold resentment in their heart. Even after the addict has gotten sober, there's still a great deal of resentment in our hearts. We'll talk about that in another episode, but that's very compact and there's a lot that goes on with that. We're going to have this resentment. Another possible sign of burnout or fatigue is difficulty concentrating. You might even stop hearing. It's like you stop receiving sound, where you're so disconnected that the sound doesn't make it to your brain to process. So it could be fading in and out of voices. It could be that you're just not allowing sound to go into the brain right now, or you're just in general can't concentrate on anything or think clearly. There could also be this sense of hopelessness, or like, what's the point? Why do I keep doing this? Never gets us anywhere. Hopelessness is very common. How could we not get hopeless, especially if you've been through a few rehab and relapse cycles? You start seeing the reality of addiction, just how serious it is. And that reality, when it meets us, we get a lot of hopelessness. And that is extremely dense and quite devastating to experience. Because when we start thinking about that hopelessness, we're going into the range of loss, losing our loved one. Are they going to disappear on the streets? If they die, will we ever find their body? It starts spiraling and it can get very, very dark and dense for us. When we are burnt out, it's not because we aren't strong, or we are failures, or we can't figure it out, or whatever things that brain is telling you. It's not any of that. We are depleted. Our nervous system is a wreck. Stress hormones are through the roof. We are in despair. Maybe there's a little bit of that depression kicking in. All of these things culminate into this experience of burnout. And it's just that so many things are happening right now, and it's overwhelming. It has no relevance on you as an individual or how you're maneuvering the situation. Why do we want self-care? How is it going to help me? You're yakking on and on, Amanda, about self-care, but give me the meat. I want my meat and my potatoes. Let's get into that. First, tell me how you like it cooked. Self-care, it helps us to regulate our nervous system, helps to take us out of that fight or flight hyperarousal state, and helps us to become calmer. Even tiny, itty-bitty micro doses of self-care can help to lower our cortisol, which is our stress hormone, can help create emotional resilience. so that we're bouncing back from these chaos, these crises, this whatever else, so we're able to be more resilient. It's going to improve our sleep, give us cognitive clarity. It's going to reduce emotional reactivity. That little teeny event where you blew up over it, it wasn't matching, your response wasn't in matching to the event. That was because you were burnt out and not taking care of yourself. When we are caring for ourselves, that mismatch, it's not going to be either as frequent or as drastic. People who are regularly caring for themselves, they're setting boundaries, because that's going to be imperative when we're caring for ourselves. We have to have our line. How can I possibly get good night's sleep if my addict is calling me several times a night with some kind of nonsense crisis, some kind of emergency, money request, whatever? I can't. If they're knocking at my door in the middle of the night, or they're fumbling and falling in the house because they're high, whatever the situation is, we have to have boundaries so that we are having the space to level ourselves out. People who have self-care also communicate more effectively. Because we're calmer, because we're more regulated, we can have clear and precise communication. We can have talks with each other better. There's also going to be less guilt and resentment. It's true. Less guilt and less resentment when we take care of ourselves, because a big part of that resentment is the fact that you are asked or feel it's necessary to sacrifice yourself right now because you're overextended, because your addict never mentions or appreciates everything that you do for them. They never say thank you. There's never an end to their requests, and that's going to wear on you. And that's going to make us start having some resentment, a little bit of hate in the heart. And we can help navigate that or mitigate that with self-care. And we're also going to be more grounded and stabilized during true crisis. Because addicts will construct, I call them false crisis. They will construct a crisis out of almost anything. Sometimes it's for attention. Sometimes it's for resources, manipulation strategies. There's a lot of reasons they do it. But when there's actual crisis, you will be stabilized and grounded within that crisis. It's not going to tip you off the edge. You're not going to lose your mind. You're not going to be scattered. You're going to be more collected and calm during that situation. And when there is a true crisis, we absolutely need you calm and collected so that you can respond quickly, swiftly, and accordingly. Sometimes we might think, well, if I'm taking care of myself, I'm being less compassionate toward my loved one. On the contrary, compassion is only sustainable when we are caring for ourselves. Because like I said, if you're overextended, constantly giving and sacrificing everything for them, you're going to start getting resentment in your heart, get that hate in the heart, and you cannot be compassionate with hate in the heart. You can't. Oh, really, the most compassionate thing we can do for ourselves and our loved ones is to care for ourselves. What are some types of self-care? There are many categories. You can look it up online. There's a lot. Not all of them are applicable at every junction. However, the important ones, I will say that. Physical care. Sleep, nutrition, movement, going to the doctors. It's not about being perfect or getting enough. We just want to make sure, hey, did I drink enough water? How much food did I eat? Did I go for a walk? Am I neglecting my doctor visits? Little things such as that. Emotional care. This is going to be a peak one for you. For us, okay? I'm still putting me in the us category. For us. Emotional care, naming our feelings. And as I mentioned in previous episodes, that could just be you making your own name for your own mixture of feelings. Yeah, I have some resentment. I have a little bitterness. I have a little anger. And I also have a little frustration, but I'm not too much of anything, so I can't claim angry or frustration solely. It's like I got this mixed emotion concoction going on. Call it something. Have a diagram. Write out all the ingredients in your concoction and name it something. Whatever you want. It's Jessica juice, or let's see, what you can say. This is my palm tree drink or mixture. Make up any name you want. This is what it feels like when yellow and green are mixed. Whatever. As long as you name it and can identify it for yourself. That's going to help us with our emotional intelligence. Help us to identify what's happening within us. Sometimes it's hard to name our emotions or to identify what all is going on in our mixture. The more we practice, the better we'll get at that. And what we find is when we name our emotions and can identify them, they fester less and it's easier to process. Because if I give myself this out and just say, well, I'm a mixture of things, I don't know, whatever, I'm just feeling so many things right now. Okay, but how are you going to address that? Like, there's zero identifying factors in that. What are the things? We really have to cut it down and take a look at what are the things and what are they coming from? Where are they coming from? What can I do to address these certain things? Is there anything? Or do I just have to sit with this mixture and fester in it for a couple days? Other elements of emotional self-care include allowing yourself to vent. This is hard for us. It's really hard to find safe spaces or safe people that understand. Sometimes I hate my addict. I hate them. I want to punch them. I want to break their nose. It's hard to say that to people because they don't get it. Like, that's crazy. What are you talking about? You want to break their nose? They don't get it because they've never been through it. We want to find spaces that are safe or people that are safe where we can express all of these sentiments because you're allowed to have them and they're normal and they're not crazy. But we need to be validated in that outward expression, and it needs to be safe and comfortable for us. And that's a big one. It could be your partner, might not be. Could be your best friend, might not be. Could be a community, might not be. Depends on us and situation and people, places. Want to find what works for us. It could be journaling and reflection. It could be a verbal reflection and a written journal. We can use prompts for our journal, or we can just freestyle it. We can write 5 pages, or we can write 1 sentence. That all classifies as journaling. Maybe it's a poem. You write a little poem for the day, and that's your journal exercise. Therapy can also help us with our emotional self-care, and that might even tie into your safe person. But also bear in mind what we say in there can always speak freely in therapy. If you've had bad therapy experiences, there's certain things you cannot say because they're liable and they have to report certain things. So depends, but that may be a little bit of a bounce or sounding board for you. And the deeper, darker things you could save for someone else outside of therapy. We do know that suppressing our emotions are not going to make them go away. All it does is, this is how I visualize it, we put it in the bank and it's collecting interest. It's always compounding, and that account will be drawn out or withdrawn. We will withdraw from that account at some point, whether it's when we choose or when it's forced upon us. But when that account gets withdrawn, the interest comes along with it. Our emotions are constantly compounding if we are not addressing them, which can lead us into trouble. I know I've gotten in trouble by suppressing emotions and having it come out sideways and not looking like a very good person, but it's just because I was going through something. And when you're going through something so detrimental as loving an addict, we aren't going to show up as very good people most of the time, but the world just doesn't know that, and they also don't understand that. It's just worse when we aren't fully taking care of our emotions. Which ties into our third category of self-care, and that really is relational. We can feel isolated within our families, within our friend groups. We can also feel isolated from them, feeling like we can't be a participant in the family or we can't be around our friends. And part of taking care of ourselves is ensuring that we do have people, even if it's just one person who we love and trust, that we can do fun things with. I'll say fun things, but also maybe just not so dense things. Okay, you have somebody you can vent to about these dark thoughts or feelings that you're having. Do you have someone you could just go for a cup of coffee with and talk about nothing? Talk about the grass or the weather. Like, I don't want to get deep at all with you. I just want to sip coffee and watch the clouds so I can get a little bit of a break from this density inside of me. Do we have people that we can go to the gym with, or hey, talk about pickleball again, go play pickleball with? We want to make sure we're having people around. That's going to make us feel connected and tied in to something greater than ourselves or our dilemmas or our addicts. It's going to give us this sense of community. And what I really love about this type of self-care is it doesn't have to be relational, in the sense of we don't have to actually have a relationship with these people. You can go to an open court and play pickleball with anyone. You can go to a coffee shop and share a table with someone. You can go to, maybe there's local cleanups, like they have litter cleanup groups. You can go volunteer at a litter cleanup or volunteer at the library and feel like you're part of the community without feeling like you have to invest so densely in a relationship with someone. That's always going to be an option. just to make sure that we feel connected and tied in to something more that's happening in the world. Often, when we love an addict, we tend to isolate, which increases our suffering. And when we become a part of the community or become a part of something bigger, that helps to keep that isolation at bay and that darkness at bay mentally. Those are just a couple of, I think, the most vital for us right now. And we don't have to do everything every day. You don't have to do extensive self-care every single day. It could be, today I do a couple breathing exercises and a stretch. Tomorrow I'm going to go for a walk and drink such and such ounces of water. What I like to do, I like to microdose my self-care. That's what I call it. How can I insert teeny tiny little elements of self-care in my day? Maybe it could be a daily, but it can also be a weekly. What have I done this week to take care of myself? And cater it to what feels good for you. If going out and volunteering feels horrific and you can't stomach being around anyone else right now, don't do it. It's you. It's all about you. What feels good for you? What's going to serve you? If journaling is atrocious, who writes with their hand? I mean, come on. Don't do it. Stretch, take a walk, call a friend, listen to a podcast, go to the dentist, get your hair cut. What are some tiny things that we can microdose in either the day or the week so that we care for ourselves in a variety of ways? It's not always going to be every night my only self-care is stretching. We want to be dynamic and move around a little bit. Yeah, most of the nights I'll stretch, but some nights I'll watch a really awesome movie in bed with a cup of tea or some snacks. And then some other nights I'll go for an evening stroll when there's no people around and it's dark and cool. What feels good to you? How are you going to feel loved and cared for by yourself? And then we just go and do that. A great place to start with this could be asking ourselves a little bit of a questionnaire or investigation on ourselves. What are some things that are draining? Yes, obviously, your addict is draining, but dive into that. What about that relationship or dynamic is most draining? Is there space to alter it? What do I find restorative? Even just a little bit of relief. What gives you the tiniest relief? Investigate there. Also, what's realistic for me right now? Because if it's not realistic for me to go play pickleball every Friday night, I'm not going to stress about doing that. That defeats the whole purpose. It's not pleasure. If I'm stressing over it, what can I do right now? If all I can do right now is wash my face, put on a really nice face serum, brush my teeth, and watch my favorite show, and that brings me the tiniest bit of relief, and I can feel like I'm not in the suffering just for that hour or two, then amazing. That's where we start. That's what we do. And within that, after we're asking these questions or doing this investigation with ourselves, we want to create some type of plan. Small, flexible, something that actually is going to fit within your life, and also something that's not going to require motivation. For me right now, I'm trying to get on my fitness journey, and that is a lot. That requires a lot of motivation for me because I'm trying to establish some habits, and that takes power. We don't want something that's going to require a huge amount of power for us, because then we might talk ourselves out of it. We might be too depleted. Something just happened with our addict and we're not capable of mustering the energy or the willpower to go do that self-care thing. What feels easy? Something that we don't have to be too ambitious over. That's going to help us build consistency. And keeping it small with the micro doses, that's also going to be a huge asset for us. You don't need to spend 4 hours in a salon or in a spa. We're just going to do itty bitty 5-minute things, 10-minute things. One of the big issues that might surface would be guilt. If I rest, I'm abandoning them. If I'm enjoying something in life, if I'm happy, if I'm smiling, then I'm minimizing the seriousness of this addiction or the problem, or I'm not facing reality. I'm trying to escape my reality of suffering and pain and torment. You might also think that, again, focusing on ourselves is selfish. What kind of cold-hearted monster is selfish at a time like this? None of these are true. You resting is not abandonment. You taking care of yourself is not selfish. And just because you're smiling or feeling a little okay for a moment does not mean that you're diminishing the seriousness of what's happening in your life right now. You're not taking anything from them. And I think that's where we misstep, is we think we're taking our reserves and handing it over to them to be the asset. This is going to be our extra firepower in this battle. And that's just not actually what's happening. All we're doing is depleting ourselves, so we are a diminished version of ourselves. We are chaotic, we are overwhelmed, we are not good versions of ourselves at all. That's what it does. There's no taking of my energy and diverting it onto you. Somehow that's going to help us in the battle. It doesn't work like that. It's actually our responsibility, our duty, to keep ourselves safe and alive and well. That's why we eat and drink water, isn't it? We have to do that. Same is true with our self-care. It's a non-negotiable that we have to participate in order to keep ourselves safe and sane. Especially right now when we're loving an addict and the turmoil that's involved with that. It's interesting that the instinct is to turn away from that self-care when in actuality what we need to do is lean into the self-care so that we can sustain the journey, the long-term journey of loving an addict. Let's be clear about a couple things. Your energy, your sustainability is not infinite. You're not supposed to endlessly give and give without replenishing. I know a lot of people talk about glass half full, half empty. But if you're drinking from my glass and I'm like, listen, I can sustain without some water. Here's my water. It's going to eventually empty. And there's not going to be anything left for them or for me. All we're doing is depleting. Eventually, it'll run dry. And we love an addict, but within that, we're not required to burn ourselves down. Some people say set ourselves on fire to keep someone else warm. We're not meant to do that. I don't care who your addict is. Your child, your sibling, your spouse. That's not what we're meant to do. That's not a relationship, and that doesn't equate to love. Caring for ourselves is all about preservation. We aren't withdrawing from others. What does self-care look like? What's eventually going to be the asset to self-care? First thing is self-care is not going to fix addiction, make it go away, or even take away all of your suffering, because you will still suffer immensely. It's a way for us to better manage the situation and attend to our needs during this difficult time in our lives. It's going to help us to sustain our own life and well-being. Also, what it's going to do, it's going to help us to think more clearly. It's going to help us react or respond in more intentional and calculated manners. It's going to help us establish and maintain better boundaries. It's going to also help us to find our way through this density, because we get lost in their darkness. And one of the best ways for us to recenter and find our way through is going to be a tool. I'll say a tool in this is going to be through self-care. It'll help to soften our resentment. That overextension causes resentment because we aren't caring for ourselves and we aren't receiving anything back from our addict, which causes that resentment. But by caring for ourselves, that will soften and it will also help us manage that. Our anger, where it's to be directed, where does it stem, how does it feel? That's going to be a lot clearer and easy to manage. Guilt, we'll also have a little less guilt. Initially, there'll be a lot of guilt about even caring for yourself at all. However, long-term goals here, it will help us to lessen that load of guilt. And we will start to feel slightly better again. To wrap it up, sum it up, put it in some paper and a bow on it. Self-care is vital for us. We love someone with an addiction and that's forever altered our lives. Can never be the same again. And we hope for the best outcome, but that's not always going to be the case for all of us. We cannot also abandon ourselves in that process. We have to be caring for ourselves. Just like you drink water and eat food, we must also implement some self-care regularly, even when you don't feel like it. It's going to lessen this too much burden that we carry. It's going to offer us support for ourselves. It's not about escaping responsibility. It's about maintaining our sanctity. And you know what? That's all I got for you on this episode. Thanks so much for listening. And we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.